So guys, welcome. It's the 17th of December 2017 and there must be a reason why that day becomes special, unless it's that tomorrow's my birthday. So happy birthday me. But why have I come on today? As some of you know, I've started a new venture called Storytelling Corner that takes place in Leamington once a month, and we're hoping to run this through all of next year. And the goal, which I hope you'll keep me to, is to finish the year, maybe September, October, with one evening where we hire the Priory Theatre, perhaps. And I invite as many of the best storytellers that have shared their tales with us through the year. But where did this love of storytelling come from? Well, what about me? I always start a presentation that I give to a network group by telling my story. The fact that when I was a young lad, 5, 6, 9, 10, we weren't allowed to talk at the dinner table. I couldn't talk after dinner because my father had just come home from a long shift in the factory. Couldn't talk at night because I shared the room with my younger brother. I was always being told to shut up at school, and in the factory nobody could hear me. Now, I loved writing stories, but never had the chance to tell stories. And as some people say now, you can't shut me up. But stories are important, particularly now, I think, in the age of Twitter, of Facebook, Instagram, where everything is instant and then forgotten. So I think one of my whys for doing this is so that my stories can be set down on video maybe, and later written in a book if I have the time. But also because, as anyone who works in the fitness clubs I attend, or even the network groups I attend, everyone knows now that if there's something left behind at the end of the meeting when everyone has left, it's mine. And I have to make a journey back to pick it up. So you just have to wonder, with age, what's going on up top. So, storytelling, the power of storytelling. Many people lose the opportunity of really moving forward, either physically or psychologically, because they keep their story inside of them. Many people fail to move forward because they repress their story. Many people climb mountains because they tell their story. So over the coming Sundays, I want to start what's going to be called Story Sunday. And I'll tell a story, and it's okay if no one listens. It's okay if 1,000 people listen. It's okay if I don't make any money from this. And it's okay if I make a lot of money from this. I'll still tell my story. So, I have told the story of how my story begins at naught, where my father was an army athlete in the war, boxed for his battalion, ran for the battalion, played football for the battalion, and played rugby for the battalion, so they looked after him. He ate with the officers, but he never drank. So on the mob, when he came into Attleborough to be with a friend, and they went to a place called the Granby in Attleborough, still there I believe, and he had 3 or 4 pints maybe, and felt a little bit heady. He decided to go and get some fresh air, and as he walked out the door he tripped and knocked my mother over. Now they'd met before, but not well enough to knock each other over. But my mother picked my father up apparently and took him to her house round the corner, and that's how I was made. Not then, about a year and a half later. So that was my story from naught. Now, we all must have perhaps stories about how our mother and dad met, how we were born. What a great place to start your story. But if we move on, let's look at stories from, let's say, 1 to 10. See, as a therapist, I start a consultation by asking the people that sit with me what their first memory is. Now, if they can say their first memory is of lying in a pram in the back garden at 2, 1, 18 months, then that sends a certain signal out to me. If they take their time, if they stumble a little, if their story starts at 9, 10, 12, you have to wonder why the story starts there. Why not earlier? What barrier is being placed in front of that early story? So if I can lead off with the story that happened to me between 1 and 10. It was probably around about 8, 9 years old. And I'd always been close to my grandmother in Attleborough. My grandfather, Sydney, I don't think we ever exchanged a word. He was a Yorkshire miner who'd moved down to the Midlands, I think. I remember seeing him in the tin bath in front of the fire, scrubbing off the coal dust. But he was a very, very quiet, perhaps a hard man. But when his time came to leave the earth, he went into a coma. And I remember my mother and my aunt spent at least 2, I think it was 3 nights by his bedside, but he hung on. And they came home and they were shattered. So my father and my uncle said to them that they would take over for the night. So they went to the hospital and I went to bed. That night I saw in my dreams, perhaps, or was it reality, the head and the shoulders of my grandfather rising up. And it would have been at about the time he died. Now remember, this was the one night that my mother and my aunt, his daughters, had come away. Was it a sign that his time had come? He'd said his goodbyes. Is that going too far into the realms of mythology and storytelling? I don't know. It's the truth, I swear. And it's my story from 1 to 10. It's a story that will stay with me for as long as my memory stays with me. So there you are. Let's start by telling our stories. I won't promise, but I will try to be here every Sunday. And I'll try to tell a story. I hope you'll listen. If you do, I thank you. If you've got other things to do, I thank you. What I would say is become comfortable telling your story. It could just be the best move of your life. Have a great day. Take care.